Welcome to True House Stories. I am Lenny Fontana, and I said to my boy Maurice Joshua, who's sitting in the backstage, I wanted to say, Chicago is my kind of town. Chicago. The way Sinatra sang it, I ain't Sinatra, but God damn it, I'm Lenny Fontana. I'm bringing you True House Stories each and every week. And a few months back, somehow we were all talking on another app called Clubhouse. And Maurice came up and we all hit him up hard and heavy. And then the conversation came to, yo, can you do the show? He's like, yeah. So I want to welcome from Chicago,
Lenny Fontana.
Joshua, part of Hurley's camp, part of music camp, part of God, everything in everyone's camp.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot of stuff. Clubhouse, all that stuff. What's going on, True House Story people? How y'all feeling? I am Maurice Joshua, y'all.
And he is the man that did This Is Acid. So, as I ask everyone, the same thing. We know, Christ, everything is going bonkers right now with COVID opening and places opening up. How are you doing out there in Chi?
I'm good, man. Like I said before, man, I am truly and just simple blessed, man. I thank God each and every day, man, for keeping our family healthy, man, and just having work to do, man. It was hard because a lot of people didn't work during the pandemic, and I was steady busy, man. So it's a blessing.
Wow. That's incredible. Thank God. And you look good. You look like
thank you, man. You know, try to keep it in shape for y'all, man. In the gym, working out, man. Ta-ta.
Let's all give him a big, huge congratulations. He just consummated the engagement. He is going to be.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I'm off the market now. Whew, been a long time, man.
So that Porsche is off the market. All right, let's get right in it because he's got a lot of stories. Let's go. So let's
go. Go ahead.
First question is, as I ask every contestant, everyone that qualifies to be on the show, is how did music find you, or you find the music as a young man, young kid?
Oh man, that's a several stories. So it's a two-part. It's a two-parter to that. Music was always in my home, man. My brother Xavier, my other brother Andrew, always used to listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire back in the day. So I was always an Earth, Wind, and Fire head, man. Just music was always around me. Then I got into the band playing when I was a younger age. And because I saw a story about Benny Goodman, I was like, man, I want to play the clarinet and the trombone. So I wanted to do that. So I got into music like that on the live side, like real playing music. On the DJ side, it was definitely from my brother Xavier that really good friends, Frankie Knuckles, used to go out to the warehouse back in the day, man. And at that time I was like 12, 13, almost 14 years old. And just seeing him getting ready at midnight, by the time I'm about to go to bed. And I'm like, what y'all about to do? He's like, we about to go party and blah, blah, blah. And he'll come back home when I'm getting up in the morning, like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. And he was just getting back in. So it intrigued me a lot. And to see him DJ, at the time, I was just like, I want to start doing that. So he locked me in a room. I remember eighth grade and told me, start picking out records, make sure you know how to match the tempos and just pick out the records and blend them together. They told me, never blend the vocals and all this other stuff. So that's how I got into the DJ part of it.
So you're finding yourself as a DJ first. And so let's say what years are these and what music is around you at that time? Like what's the big tracks around that time? So that
well, no, I'm gonna start. I was a musician first.
Musician,
playing. Yeah. I was clarinet. I was valve trombone, baritone, and then I ended up playing tuba. Then after that, all percussions.
So you played all woodwinds and everything.
Woodwinds, man. Yes.
No keyboard, no piano.
No piano, nothing like that until the late 80s. That's when I was teaching myself how to play. Early 90s, taught myself how to play. Not as well as some of those music you can go out there and have a concert, but I can get my way around the keyboard. Yes.
Gotcha. But you know what? When you need that horn section, like Earth, Wind, and Fire, you.
Oh yeah, right. I gotta grab my horn. Somebody stole my clarinet, man. I'm gonna find y'all. Whoever took my clarinet.
Be careful because he means that.
So at that time, DJing wise, late 80s. So back then Chicago was coming up as the Hot Mix Five. You had Farley Keith, Ralph Rosario, Mickey Oliver, Scott Seals. So that was coming of age, and the Chicago house sound was coming up. They created Chicago house music. So I grew up at that time where everything was coming about. The Italian house was really big, man. Like I remember my first record I purchased myself was Koto, Japanese War Games. Oh my goodness, man. That was like a hot record, man, back then. So all the Italian dance like Hypnotic Tango, I'm Hungry, all that, Klein and MBO. So that generation was like going on from the Italian house and then the straight Chicago own house music.
So yeah, I can hear even in New York, Dirty Talk. Those records were huge too here.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I remember New York back in the early '80s too. I mean, late '80s. I forget who made it, but It's a Mean World was a huge record. I was just like, oh my goodness, love that record. I remember David was playing that record, man, because when we used to travel back in the This Is Acid days, we used to be in New York every weekend. Lived in New York. I lived out in Ocean Hill, Bronzeville, and Brooklyn, man, for like the entire year I was out there. So I stayed there.
I can hear the song It's a Mean World too. I can hear it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man. We played that record was just, my goodness. Yeah. And then just
everyone, help Maurice, Joshua, and Lenny.
I forget the name. I got it in my crib. If I type in It's Me, it'll come up, but I forget the name of it. Yeah.
Everybody, let me go to Prevision for those moments. I need to take my Prevision.
Yeah, so back then, after during the This Is Acid tour days, we used to go to the Red Zone.
Wait, hang on. Dave. Go back, because you're already success already. No, we got to get before the success. You're already
okay.
So where's this whole thing from school? You're getting your DJing on, and
okay. So here we go. So. So I started DJing. My brother taught me how to DJ. So of course I started in high school. Started out DJing, doing all the so-called homecoming gym jams. And then while I was in class, I met this one guy, which is sitting right behind me in class, and his name was Hula Mahone. So as AKA Hot Hands Hula. So he used to play with me and tap me in the back all the time. Like, I'm better at you DJing, blah, 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 all this other stuff. I'm like, well, just come over to the house and, we'll work it out and everything. So, of course, my brother had Techniques SLB1s back in the day. So we was playing on there. And back then, Hula didn't have a pitch control. He used to use just paper and a regular turntable to pitch stuff up and down. So he came over, and that's how we became friends, man, and since in high school, and been hanging out. So after high school, we started trying to do more music. Hula brought the Roland 707 drum machine. He say, I'm gonna save up and get this drum machine. And back then, that thing cost a lot of paper back then. It's not like now. And then we just started making tracks. Our first record together we did an EP called The Posse. And Hula wanted that record name called Future Records.
So how'd you do this now? Where did you do this? Where was this set up? You had the 707 drum machine. What were you doing?
So this was in Hula's parents' house, and we were upstairs in his room. Upstairs in the room, and he put everything in the closet Well, no, let me take that back. It was downstairs in the basement. Hula used to set up these Christmas lights and splice the Christmas light into the speakers and make the lights go and blink with the speakers. So it was kind of crazy, man. So Hula's like, I want to put out a record. I want to have a record label. So we did everything under a group named The Posse. So we did something like that. And then it was like some of the records took off and everything. And then we created, was that? No, okay. So no, this is that. This is after This Is Acid. So yeah. So it was probably mid 80s, say by 80, probably 85, 86. Back then Chicago had a lot of DJs just had to put out records. So it was infinite. It was like if you're a DJ, you had to put out records. Because back then, you had, of course, you had Move Your Body, which is the house music anthem that came out. You had Adonis, No Way Back. And then all of a sudden, all the DJs start coming, like Steve Hurley with Jack Your Body, Music is the Key. You had Farley come out with all his records, Farley, all the Love King, all that stuff. So during this time, it was like we wanted to create a record. So we was always doing tracks inside the house. And it was so funny because at the age of 17, me and Hula moved into another house that was available with a guy named DJ K. Alexi.
Yeah, this guy's, he was 17, not 26.
No, 17. We moved out. Mom was freaking out and they were like, "Don't go, no." But it was an opportunity to all of us living together. So we started living there together, man, and just doing tracks and everybody's DJing and we just having a good time. And back then, I did a track that started to rotate, and it was called "I Got a Big Member." I don't want to say that. There may be some kids watching, but
he's talking about that record, genitalia.
Yeah. So it was on Trax Records.
I remember.
Wait. Before Trax, I did the track like that. So the track was rotating in the Chicago area, and of course, Farley Jack Master Funk at the time was telling everybody it was his record. Okay, that rumor got around. And then me and Hula was DJing at we had a little club in the south suburb we called the Complex. And we have a buddy of ours that used to go in the city all the time. His name was Juju. He came to us like, "Listen, I know a guy that's about to go in and make your record." I'm like, "Make our record?" I'm like, "How you gonna make our record? It's my record." And me and Hula's like, "Okay, well, we're gonna do a party next week. Have him come down to the club, and we're gonna figure this out and take care of him." And right back then we was like, "Man, we gonna jump him, man, and man, whoop his tail." So the guy who came down, lo and behold, his name was Liddell Townsend.
Ooh, there you go.
So Liddell was like, "Yeah, Larry's gonna make me. He's paying me to remake your record. I didn't know you made it. I was just gonna do it." He was like, "So why don't you just come down and meet Larry, and you can tell him that's your record, and you can just do it." So from there on, in like 1987, we became good friends with Liddell Townsend still to this day. We went down to see Larry Sherman from Trax Records. And he was like, "Yeah, he admitted, I was about to put the record out. Didn't know who it was. He said he thought it was Farley's, but Farley couldn't get in the file. So I came down there and he was like, I want to sign you to the label and pick this record up." So I'm like, okay, didn't know nothing about that, how to make a record like for real, in the studio, nothing like that, in a real studio. So he came down, was like, "Okay, I want to do this record for you, and I'll give you $2,500. I'm like, "Woo, that's a lot of damn money back then, man." I'm like, okay, cool. So me not knowing anything, of course, I brought in my boy Hula, and Liddell Townsend was there too. And we went into the studio and also with a local big rapper back then named Cool Rock Steady. He was down with African Bambaataa, all these cats, man. So we was like, all right, cool. I got him on. I'm going to bring him in too. So in the studio right there in the session, we did I Got a Big Member over. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some other song. I'm like, Hula, let's do a record. And then I'm going to do another record on the flip side. So I did Feel the Mood with Cool Rock Steady. And then Hula penned This Is Acid. So back then we only had a keyboard and a drum machine. I remember having I bought a Yamaha. It was a C something. It was, oh my goodness. It was a keyboard. It was a keyboard almost like what David Cole had, the DX, but it was similar to that because it had some of the same sounds. Because I wanted that keyboard for one main reason, because David Cole, they did the record with Sanday. Notice Me. Dun, 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 dun. I was like, yo, I got to have that bass patch. So we was, so before that, I was like, all right, I found something that go with there. So we go back And we in the studio. So Hula started creating this beat with the 808 drum machine. Original, just sequence and everything. And the beat was just hitting. And then all of a sudden, we had the TB303. So Acid House was just coming in. So we was good friends with Pierre, DJ Pierre, back then from Trax Records Future, all that stuff. So people don't know that Pierre did I Got a Bug that was on Trax Records Inside Our Closet when we was all living together. It was crazy, man. So it's a lot of stories, man. So Hula created this bass patch on the TR-303, and it was like grooving, man. It was like, so he synced it up and just like, so, playing with the resonance. Okay.
Define what you meant, because you got younger people watching. Acid House. What is this? Because that's the thing that happened, but what was the lead up for you doing Acid House?
The lead up for that was DJ Pierre and Spanky from Future. They were one that created that sound of what they call it, acid. It wasn't because of drug or anything. It was a reference to what the sound was making, real grimy. And remember back in the day, the 303 wasn't really wasn't created for what we created it for. So at that time, people started messing with it and creating a sound, and it was huge. So when Future came out, that was a style that we was trying to do it. It was hard to get at the time because people didn't know the machines to get it. Because I think Roland made it on a few. It wasn't that popular. So it was just, if you got one, you got one.
That's it.
So, yeah. So we had one. So Hula started playing with it. And then we started he was like, I'm going to put some lyrics to it. I'm like, okay.
Who is DJ? But what DJ in Chicago made it famous? Like, who was the first to really play this Acid House that all of a sudden blew up? Yeah,
the DJ was DJ Pierre.
So all of us do something, because one DJ, all of a sudden, boom, everybody's like, that's the sound. So Pierre's playing in Chicago.
DJ Pierre was right. He was a DJ, and he was also making these records where he coined the frame as the Acid House. So, because he made the song Future Tracks, all that stuff on Trax Records, man. So that's what made it really huge for us. So we made the record. Of course, Larry Sherman at the time, because it's supposed to be a Maurice and Hula EP. And so when the first record came out with the labels, it had Maurice Joshua with Hot Hands Hula.
Okay.
So we put the record out, 87, and it was out for like a year. And it was doing pretty good. I mean, just locally on the street, we was cool. We was good. We had another record out. Okay, cool. At that time, there was a gentleman in London named Les Adams. He did a remix of This Is Acid. And it started going up the charts. It started getting a lot of club play. People really tripped out because at that time, during the phase over, Ty Terry had Black Riot. Massive record, man. So it was huge. It was getting a lot of love. So I guess, it's another story about that, because we was at the tunnel one day and Ty got mad at me because he was like, that's my sound. But that's another story. I'll tell you that later on. So going to the This Is Acid. So I get a call from Larry Sherman, and he was like, your record, This Is Acid, is blowing up. They're calling me, and they want you to do some shows out in New York. I didn't know what a show was. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, they want you to come perform the song. And I'm like, what? What song? And he was like, This Is Acid. We took the vocals, and he got the vocals, and this guy Les Adams did a remix, and it's getting huge.
So it was a Les Adams remix. Is that where the Tartary sound? Bom, bom.
Yes.
He takes that?
He takes that, correct.
Oh, he takes it off the Warlock record.
So I believe I talked to Les when we first got started, and I forget, but yeah, he definitely took that record and restructured the sample.
Right, because at the same time, here's Todd's record, and here's this new record with you, with that same sound.
Same sound. Now different. It's kind of a little different,
but it's recognizable.
It's recognizable. Now, at this time, it's like blowing up. So Larry told me I shouldn't do shows. I don't know what I'm doing. I shouldn't do that. I took this as an opportunity. Like, you know what? Oh yeah, I'm going to New York.
Damn
so
right.
I used to manage a little teen club in Chicago called Mike T's. It was in Orland Park. It was one of the Chicago Bears. Mike Tomczak used to own the place. So I used to manage there and play house music there. And then I used to have these employees, but then it was a nice little setup for a teen club. So I was like, you know what? We got to practice, because if they want to do a show, we gonna have to do a show. So
Nice.
I put together a show tape. And, you know, I was telling you back then, it wasn't no DAT, no CD, no MP3 file. So everything was on reel to reel. Right. So I'm putting everything on reel to reel. So at the time, we only had one record. So when the guy was like, you have to do a show, I called him up. It was a club in New York, and it was called the Post Office. I never forget
I remember that spot.
The Post Office.
Jesus.
Right. So I forget the guy. Oh my God, it's been so long. I forget the guy's name. I know people, but he was married to one of the cover girls. It was his wife, but he was the booking agent, and he booked me. And so at that time, I had to play road manager, everything, because I don't know what was going on. So I had to book the airfare, book the hotel, and so the record started getting huge. So once that happened, A&M Records, Vendetta, picks the record up. Once they picked the record up, Larry Sherman, for some reason, messed the whole record up and just put my name as the first name, Maurice, without Hula or nothing like that on there. So now the record just says my name,
Maurice Joshua, right?
Right. Just Maurice for This Is Acid. So Hula hears the record now, because the original record, if you go back and listen to the original This Is Acid, it's got all acid in there. The acid sound in TB303. Okay? In Les Adams' remix, there's no acid. So Hula's like, this is crazy. There's no acid in there. He was like, I don't want my name nowhere on that record. I'm like, are you serious? He was like, yeah, I don't. This is horrible. I'm like, okay. He was like, I don't care about my name on it. It's cool, blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, the record blows up, man.
Yeah,
going up the air.
Tell me how angry he gets after this. This is what I want to
No. He's not angry, because believe it or not, Hula's was working at the bank. So mind you, we was traveling. We was got a booking agent, famous artists at the time. Then I went to Pyramid. So I mean, we getting booked every weekend. I'm out every weekend. That's why I knew a lot of people. I was in New York constantly. I mean, from the Palladium to the Tunnel to Red Zone to Palace and Jersey, just all that stuff, man. The whole New York coast, we traveled from that to Florida, everything, and around the world with this song. And I remember, that's why I'm coming up now. We was performing at the Tunnel. So Louis V was DJing, Johnny Darnell. I mean, the Tunnel was the first place, man, I went to and was just like in awe. Because if you've been in a tunnel before, you know it's a tunnel. That's why they call it a tunnel. And I mean, this is where is the correlation of like house music at the time was so huge, because the tunnel.
Shows Louis V. At the Roman Ricardo was there at that time.
Well, it was Roman Ricardo. It was Johnny Darnell, and then Louis V was DJing sometimes, special guest. Yeah. So at the time, it was Louis there, Roman Ricardo, and then Johnny Darnell. Correct. Right. You're right, Lenny. So at that time, so we was in a DJ booth getting the reel, wind up, tails out. That's how I did my reels back in the day. And Todd Terry was in there. Now I knew who Todd Terry was, and I'm like, yeah, we started talking, but Todd kind of stiffed us a little bit, because he was like, y'all but took my sound and blah blah blah. I'm like, man, Todd, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I didn't do nothing. We just out here performing. It was a remix.
Sound.
And then we became real tight after that, man. So it was great.
The funny part about Todd is he's sampling everybody
else, right?
He's telling you, you can check my sound. Todd,
right.
Hearing this, you know damn right what I'm saying.
Right. No, but it was funny, man, because the record blew up, man. So we got signed to A&M Vendetta, man. At the time, Bruce Carbone was the A&R person.
Top guy.
Right. Martha Reynolds, man, showed me about New York, which she was one of the promoters out there for promotion. Man, Tommy Nappy was there.
Tommy Nappy.
Right.
Another legend in DJ scene.
Yeah, so we started trap. I mean, back to when I was at the Tunnel, man, what really freaked me out at the Tunnel at this time, record was huge. So we performed with Salt and Pepper at the time and it was tripped out because house went with hip hop, went with freestyle, all in one night. You would hear this type of music.
That's a Vito Bruno production. I know who that production.
Vito Bruno, that's right. But the coolest thing about this, Lenny, was in New York. If you go inside, we was performing it. So Biz Markie is in there. Busta Rhymes is in there.
That's right.
Run DMC is there.
Run and DMC. Right.
Queen Latifah was just getting started, hanging, dancing to our song, looking at us perform. Right. So the tripped out about it is the record was so big, man, that we was performing so much that everybody used to see us every week. We was there performing one night. Queen Latifah come to us. Now, I knew the name, but we didn't know what was going on because she did Come Into My House at that time, which was a house track. Come Into My House. So she was getting onto the hip hop sound, which Chicago created hip house. I'm just going to put it out there. Put it out all right? There. Right. I'm going to put it out there. So when that happened, she came to us afterwards, was like, yo, I'm doing a video the next day, which was, I think was a Saturday or Sunday, because I forget what day we performed. And she was like, I want y'all in the video. Please come by, blah, blah. Of course, we was drinking, partying all night till 4 or 5 in the morning. Missed the video shoot. Okay, missed the video shoot that we supposed to be in. And lo and behold, it was Queen Latifah Come Into My House video that blew up too. And then she blew up on that side. And I was like, oh my God, we missed all that, man. Just by partying too much. But yeah, that's some of the stories, man. So, that's what happened with the This Is Acid, side of it. So yeah, that's what happened. And then, like I said, that record was a blessing, man, because it got me into this industry to this day. Because after I got off tour on that, that's what made me want to get into the music industry.
That's what I want to know. So now you're coming home off tour.
Yeah.
You step back on Chicago. Where does it begin for you? Because I know all this is a whole nother world now.
Oh yeah, it's totally different because we was getting played on radio, so we come back and I was like, I want to do this still, but I don't know what to do because I didn't know about production that much as strongly, so I'm like, I want to make the records, I just don't want to be in front no more because back in the day we had to be in front. You can go see the video on This Is As and me and Hula and the posse as we call it, but so we did two things, I was talking about this with you earlier. And I missed this out. I'm glad you be thinking of stuff now. After that happened, we linked up with that guy, Wayne Williams, who was the A&R person for Jive Records. Okay? Wayne is...
Batman.
Right. Batman too, right. Yeah, Batman. And so Wayne Williams, we was doing a remix. He brought us down. As a matter of fact, it was Liddell Townsend that contacted Wayne, and Liddell was doing a remix first, and then Liddell called us to come in there to do some remixes. So we did a remix on Mr. Leaf, Pump It Up. That was our first really house remix we did after we got off tour and did all this other stuff. Record came out to be great, man, because we gave him a whole bunch of mixes on there. So that record blew up, and then Wayne was like, we want to do some more work, blah, blah, blah. We did some more work. And it came to that we was all together, me, Hula, Liddell, everybody else like that. And my guy, Fingers, who known as Azza right now. So Hula and Fingers signed with Jive Records, okay, under their production company. So they was doing some more dance stuff, but then they wanted to get it more into the R&B and stuff side like that. So they went on that side and they did the Will Smith Summertime and all the other stuff. I didn't want to sign with Jive, so I went with somebody I knew with Steve Silk Hurley and his company, ID Productions.
All right.
Okay, so they called me in for a meeting. Him and Frank Rodrigo at the time, Larry Stern, rest in peace, and then Steve Hurley. And they was like, listen, I love what what you've been doing, blah, blah. I would love to have you part of the team. I'm like, what?
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Was that a gut feeling not to sign with Jive? Was it just like you had this gut reaction, or you were just like, nah, I don't belong there? Was there something that made you say? Because remember, that's a major label through Aris.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
absolutely.
Why would someone say no? What was your reason?
Well, I think because I wanted to do different things. Because at the time, they wasn't doing any type of house if it wasn't for Wayne. Wayne being the A&R on that side. So me coming there, I probably had to conform and doing some type of R&B, which at the time I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to do straight, just all house. Okay. That's what I want to do. So knowing the background of Steve Hurley, from his production back in the day, his remixes, and I was a big fan of Hurley. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go over here and sign on this side.
Okay.
So that's 90, early 90s, like straight 1990 right there. See, because I got off tour like 89 and started doing some work. So 90.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years touring. Hard.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Hard.
Good.
Hard. I mean, that's why all my New York, I love New York because I was out there just living out there, man. It was great.
Back it up for everybody. We used to say it like this: from titty to titty, city to city.
Right, exactly.
Dirty, everybody, but he knows what I mean when you're in the...
Yes.
Those days, we weren't thinking about getting on a plane to go to Europe. We were just thinking regional record, right? Regional.
That's right. A regional record. That's right. Yep. You're right. You're right, Lenny.
Wait, and you got a record with National? That's what they would say. National? Wow.
Yeah, people don't know about that right now, right? You had to go through all that back in the day.
You don't remember. You don't know that. You don't know how hard. Like this man, Maurice, is talking step by step, getting on planes, taking buses, whatever, limos, and you just go strength to strength. You're just going day to day.
Yeah.
Less. And you can do that for that long time. And coming out of nowhere. It's not like you're Madonna that you have, a big... He stepped up to the game and said, okay, now I'm going to be instantaneous. Maurice, this is acid. And go.
Yeah, and that's, you know what? And the blessing, cool thing about that, Lenny, is while we was climbing our ladder, going up on the ladder with the charts and everything, we were always humble because we knew where we came from and we knew what we had to do to get there. And that was a blessing too, because when you coming down the chart, your record's ending and blah, blah, blah. Some of the same people that I was in New York with that was promotion people that I was always nice to, sign every copy, every picture until they didn't have nothing else to do. Yeah. And even though you tired, whatever, I wasn't an ass in them. They asked me to do anything, promo, commercials, we did all that. And lo and behold, we had great relationships because every president to the label that was giving us remixes knew me because of This Is Acid, because they was the promotion person at the time. Now they A&R people and in higher places now. And so they remember me.
Power.
Yes.
Power.
And they got power. But they remember me being at home, be like, listen, you always did this for me. I got you on this remix, what you need, who you want to work with, blah, blah, blah. That's how it happens. So I go into Hurley camp and it was great, man, because I was a big fan of Hurley, of especially his remixes, from him just stripping the track down and then, laying all new parts and everything. So that was kind of new because, Frankie and David, I can say probably was one of the pioneers of that. And then Hurley transitioned in that. So it was kind of great, man, because when I first came into the camp, it was just Hurley doing all the remixes. And then he was telling me about this guy that was like, he only works late at night. You may want to work with him. He'd be in here like after midnight and you can see him. And his name was Eric E-Smoove Miller. And it was crazy because, he always does the late night mixes. And I see why, because Eric used to just come in at 12 o'clock at midnight and do all his production because he was working during the daytime as a teller. So he was burning both sides of the candle. So we created a team, man, and Hurley wanted to transition because he was doing so much remixes. So it was, at the time when we first started, it was Hurley, E-Smoove, and myself. So we was giving everybody three different type of style of mixes remixes at the time for a price of one. So Hurley would do like the probably the club pop mix,
Radio stylish club.
right? Radio stylish, right? Erica would, of course, would do the late night mix. So you like New Jersey type of style, real undergroundish, real soulful. And then they wanted me just to do the underground mixes, limited vocals at the time, and all this other. So I have to say, I was the first before Puffy or anything else that be saying this is the remix or using a voice as the remix. I did it first before him. Let you know it's already out there. So we started doing that, and it got huge, man, because it started to grow, man. All the remixes, and as a powerhouse, and people start saying, "Oh, I can get 3 different mixes, for this price," and blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. So during the early '90s, man, mid '90s, man, it was like we did so many remixes, man, to the point, like I was telling you, like. Def Mc, Judy White was calling everybody, was like, who are you guys and how are you taking half the work that we doing, from New York, which was kind of crazy at the time, because Def Mix.
Don't forget, bro, Hurley's mixes were on daytime radio.
Yeah.
So please don't get this twisted. Hurley was incredible, and we all said it, right?
Absolutely.
So and Maurice said it so right. You're getting Hurley. You're getting Maurice Joshua and E-Smoove for the same one price of Hurley.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. Think about it.
So, and the cool thing about it is the reason why Hurley did that, because he wanted to transition out of doing all the remixes to do just major production, and then switching up to like trying to R&B funk stuff. And that's why he put his on like that. And it worked, man, because after he stopped doing all the remixes, but he'd do certain type, depends on what it is, like the Michael Jackson, all that stuff like that.
Can you give people synopsis of Hurley for his pedigree? Because he comes out of R&B too, right? As far as he's got a big...
No, Hurley was, afterwards, yeah. I mean, before he was, just known for the house stuff, but he transitioned well because he did like the CeCe Peniston with the R&B stuff, Keep On Walking, that was huge for him, all the Shantae Savage. So, yeah. So, I mean, Hurley, great vision, man. And like I said, the man was just great talented, man, especially on the spicing tip and just arrange it. He's the one that taught me really how to arrange a song to how you're supposed to do it, from intro. It can be the pre-hook, then the verse 1, and then verse B, then you got the chorus, then vampire, whatever it has to be. So yeah, I learned a lot from there. And then that was one of the places where when I came into, I was just keyboard and drum machine, like, just the drum machine and the keyboard and programming like that. So it was like that place, ID Production, first brought me into like working on a computer, which they had the little small SE, Mac, black and white. And then on the program they was using at the time was Digital Performer. It was crazy, man, because it was crazy the sequence, because never did that before. So they locked me in a room, man, with this guy named Manny Moore, which Manny is known for writing all the hits for 20 Figures, like Short Dick Man, Lick It, all that stuff, Maximilian, all the things like that. So so taught me how to, the sequence, everything, and produce inside the computer. And I was like, okay, this is kind of nice because you can see everything on the screen and you don't have to go to each scene on the drum machine or anything. So it was much easier and more faster for production and everything on that side. Yeah.
So you actually got all your chops basically at the ID Eiffel Tower, basically.
Absolutely. So that's when I started sitting down at the keyboard. Right.
You have talent. Yeah. You're not taught talent. Talent you're coming there with. You're taught the fundamentals of, hey, this is how we do records like this.
Correct. Yep. Exactly. And learning the industry. And man, just started, that's when I really sat down at the keyboard. I got to start learning some chords or something, to get down with this. So, man, and just had to, and like I said, from that end, we remix everything from Diana Ross, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Paula Abdul, Crystal Waters, CeCe Peniston, a ton of people overseas that was huge records for him, like Jamanda, just everything, man. So it was great until, like I was saying before.
Hang on, let me stop for a second.
Go ahead.
Glass of water.